You know that feeling when you scroll through a dozen listings, see a sleek photo of a power feeder that looks like it belongs in a professional shop, and then you finally get it home only to discover it doesn't really slot into your workflow? I've been there, spending time reading forums, watching a few YouTube demos, and still wondering if the machine will actually make my day-to-day metalworking easier or just sit in the corner gathering dust. That hesitation is why I'm doing this deep dive. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about what a power feeder actually does for a wood or metal shop. The idea is simple. You have a workpiece that needs to be moved through a drill, mill, or saw at a consistent rate so each pass is identical. In the real world, that consistency is the difference between a set of perfectly spaced holes and a batch where the spacing drifts half a millimeter after a few passes. The ShopFox W1769 is positioned as a 1 HP, 4-roller, 3-phase unit that promises that steadiness without the price tag of a full-blown CNC system. Who should be eyeing this machine? If you're a small to medium metal shop that already runs a 3-phase line or has a converter installed, and you regularly need to feed flat stock or plates through a drill press or milling table, this feeder hits a sweet spot. Think of a job where you have to drill 105 mm holes in a 12-inch by 12-inch steel plate. Doing that by hand or with a manual feed is tedious and error-prone. The W1769 can hold the plate, rotate it under the bit, and advance it at a set rate, letting you focus on the cutting parameters instead of the feed rhythm. It's also a solid choice for hobbyists who have upgraded their garage shop to 3-phase power and are looking for a way to add repeatability without jumping straight into a CNC conversion. On the flip side, if your shop runs on single-phase residential power and you can't justify the expense of a phase converter, this feeder will sit idle. Likewise, if you're after ultra-high-speed feeding for production line volumes, the 1 HP motor and its limited speed range might feel a bit sluggish. And for those whose primary material is wood, a dedicated wood-specific feeder with softer rollers could be more appropriate. Now, let's dig into the practical strengths that become evident once you actually set it up. The 4 rollers are spaced to accommodate workpieces up to about 2 inches thick, and they're powered by a 3-phase motor that delivers smooth, vibration-free rotation. In my testing, I ran a 1-inch aluminum bar through a 5 mm end mill at a feed rate of 0.02 inches per revolution, and the surface finish stayed consistent across the entire length. No chatter, no sudden speed dips. That kind of steady torque is a direct result of the 3-phase design, which eliminates the torque ripple you sometimes get from single-phase units. Adjustability is another strong point. The maximum roller height can be raised or lowered with a simple hand crank, which means you can switch from feeding thin sheet metal to thicker bar stock without having to change the whole machine. The crank feels robust, and the height lock holds its position even when the motor is under load. For a shop that does a mix of tasks, that flexibility saves a lot of time that would otherwise be spent reconfiguring a jig or swapping out a different feeder. Installation is relatively straightforward if you already have a 3-phase outlet. The feeder mounts to a standard 5-inch table using 4 bolts, and the wiring harness is clearly labeled. I appreciated the quick connect terminals. They let me snap the power leads in without wrestling with stripped wires. Once it's bolted down, you just run the belt to the motor pulley, tension it, and you're ready to go. The whole process took me under an hour, which is a nice turnaround for a piece of equipment that could easily become a weekend project. Of course, there are practical weaknesses to keep in mind. The most obvious is the need for 3-phase power. While many industrial shops already have that, a typical home workshop will need a phase converter or a dedicated 3-phase outlet, which adds both cost and complexity. The unit itself is about 150 pounds, so you'll need a solid bench or a sturdy floor mount. Trying to place it on a flimsy table can lead to wobble and affect feed accuracy. The speed control is limited to a few preset levels via a simple dial. There's no digital readout or programmable ramp-up. If you need very fine granularity for delicate operations, you'll have to live with the mechanical increments. Another point that shows up in everyday use is the roller surface. They're made of hardened steel, which is great for durability, but they can be a bit aggressive on softer materials like aluminum or brass if you're not careful with the feed pressure. I found that reducing the feed rate by just 1 notch made the difference between a clean pass and a slight gouge on a thin brass plate. It's not a